Now it's time for our major and minor chords, the segment in which we talk about our respective highs and lows of the week. Emma, what say you?
My new minor might be that you just called me Emma. That was weird.
Emma.
That was weird. You never call me by my normal name.
Hey, howdy, hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Mike's Monday Jams, the official podcast for music appreciators everywhere. Today we're going to be talking about the song God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. Let's get it.
God only knows what I'd be without you. God only knows what I'd be without. God only knows what I'd be without. God
First one of June.
Happy June.
Monday Jam for June 3rd, 2024. MC and EC on the track. How you feeling today, EC?
Feeling great. Feeling, it's the summertime, so it makes this Monday Jam even more appropriate. Obviously not one of their beachy songs, but they are called the Beach Boys, so.
Generally speaking,
And
yes.
they do sound summery all the time.
Generally speaking, yes. I wouldn't characterize this one as maybe more summery.
It's just their vibe, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. You put them on, you expect a certain product or result, end result. But you are absolutely right, and that's something we're going to be talking about a lot today because with this album, Pet Sounds, full of bangers, they were trying to rid that beachy image and go for something more mature. But we can talk about that in just a bit. Also, very fitting that this album was released in May of 1966, so about this time many, many moons ago. Mm-hmm. And we just watched the Beach Boys documentary on Disney Plus that came out last week.
Yeah.
Pretty good, pretty solid. I watched it
good.
more so than you. You were working.
I was working, but I did pay a good bit of attention to it. I don't feel like I really missed anything.
No. And
I wasn't working too hard during it.
Not the podcast omission there.
Well, come on. It was a night that our game was on TNT, so I can only do stuff after the game. We were watching it while the game was on. I was paying attention to the game on my computer, and I was watching the Beach Boys documentary on the TV.
Well, I mean, you are quite the multitasker. That is a
I'm
strength.
good at multitasking.
That is a strength you possess.
I feel like growing up I was not good. But I'm very good. I can zero in on one thing when I need to.
Exactly.
But when I can do multiple things at once, I can usually get them done.
Bingo.
Yeah.
But no, it was a solid documentary, even if you have just a slight interest in the band or know a couple of their songs. I think it's worth a watch.
Yeah, and it wasn't very long.
Nah, it was like an hour and a half or something like that.
I don't even know if it was that long.
I think it was like an hour.
Well, it didn't feel very long.
No, I mean, it's paced very well, and it follows the story pretty well, and it gives you all the nooks and crannies you need to know.
Yeah, they just didn't, discuss at length their obviously greatest song, Kokomo.
Yeah, it didn't show up till the end credits. Spoiler alert. That
definitely
one.
not their greatest song. I do like Kokomo a lot, but
a
lot of people hate Kokomo.
Yeah, it's not a real place.
We're discussing today their greatest song.
Yes.
Pretty much objectively.
Yes. Shocker, Kokomo's not a real place, just in case
I did think Kokomo was real until about 2 years ago.
It is made up. I think you made that realization at Destin. We told you.
I think so. I always thought all the other places they talk about in the song are real.
Yes.
And do you remember when we were at the Houston airport earlier this year, and you could fly to every one of the places in Kokomo?
Yes.
Because I'm such a nerd. We've talked about this on the podcast at great length, but I love to look at the departure boards at airports. And at the Houston airport, you can fly to Aruba, Jamaica. Ooh, I want to take you. You can fly to
I heard
Bermuda,
that's pretty great
the Bahamas.
around this time of year. Ooh, I want to take you.
Come on, pretty mama.
Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take you to Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama.
We could fly to all of them, and I was like, oh my god, we could fly. And it was also January, when I was like, oh my god, we could fly to Kokomo.
Yeah, but that'd be a perfect time. It's near the equator. So.
No, absolutely.
Alas, yes, you could have done a little Kokomo trip of your own.
I wonder if that's a a thing anybody's done. They like go on a Kokomo trip and they go to all the
I'm
real
sure.
places.
I'm sure they have. That would have been a great like tour idea for them. You know, be like, oh, it's the Kokomo tour, and just hit all the.
Were they even
stops.
touring at that time?
I don't know. Kokomo came out in the 80s.
Yeah, I don't know if they were touring in the late 80s when Cocktail came out. Or really until they, like, you know, grew into their older age, I think. And, of
Yeah.
course, once John Stamos decided to become a surrogate Beach Boy.
Yes, indeed.
Gigi really wants to see them with John Stamos. But I think I think Gigi and I have seen the Beach Boys, like, 2 or 3 times in, like, recent memory. And, like, all of those tours, like, John Stamos has done certain shows, but, like, not the ones that they went to, which is
Oh.
tragic.
That is tragic.
Because, of course, you want to see John Stamos. He's such a cutie.
Well, of course.
He's a king.
Man, if only Tom Selleck would get out there, and then
I feel like Tom Selleck is not musically inclined.
I know, but it just for Gigi's sake, she
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to leave him alone.
Yeah.
She'd be following him around. Joplin, Missouri, Cheyenne, Wyoming,
Branson, Missouri.
Branson. She'd hit him at every stop.
Oh my God! 100. I mean, another thing we've discussed much on this podcast, Branson, Missouri. If the Beach Boys played Branson, Missouri, 100% it would sell out. All those old people there.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. The bingo night would have to start a little earlier that night, of
Yeah.
course. But then, as you transitioned into the show,
Bingo night would be a
man.
pregame for the Beach
Oh,
Boys.
yeah, for sure.
Bingo, Beach Boys.
Bingo with the Beach Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you mentioned surrogate members. That's been kind of a theme for them as a group, because as we learned from the documentary, that they kind of had a touring group / writing group, which was pretty much just Brian Wilson and whoever he decided to collab with, while the touring group was actually out touring. And there was a period of time, and it was around the time of the recording and writing of Pet Sounds, where Glenn Campbell was a surrogate Beach Boy for a little bit, Mr. Southern Nights. But then when they came back to do Pet Sounds and all that, Glenn had pretty much had his own career kind of kick off. So then he was like,
But they
"I'm done."
said in the documentary that like he was only like a studio musician before this. So like being a part surrogate Beach Boy kind of like turned him into his own artist.
Which is kind of nice.
That is cool.
It's kind of cool. It's something I didn't know before. I didn't know Glenn Campbell was a Beach Boy, but that's what happens when you watch documentaries. You learn stuff.
You learn stuff.
Yeah, the Beach Boys, they are the Wilson brothers, 3 of them, Brian, Dennis, and Carl. Brian being the main creative force /
The beachiest boy.
Yes, the auteur, if you will.
Honestly, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, the auteur. And then you have their cousin Mike Love, and then the neighbor guy
The neighbor.
who joined. Al, what's his name? I
Tim
think?
Allen, the neighbor.
How about that?
Home Improvement.
Yes. So they, were a tour de force in the early 60s, mid 60s. But then kind of fell off the scope a little bit towards the end of the 60s and into the 70s. But man, they were at the height of their powers in the early 60s, it seemed like, and maximized surf rock and the whole California dream, and they were like the living embodiment of it. Like, if you think about a band that would have been considered as like the American Beatles at that time, it was definitely them. And
When we were watching the documentary, like, obviously I've seen pictures of the Beach Boys before, but watching them over and over, I was like, wow, the standards in the 60s were just really different for who was a cute musician. Because, I mean, even the Beatles, Paul was cute. That was it. Paul was the only cute Beatle. And, like...
you don't think Ringo's cute?
Like, none of the Beach Boys are cute. And I was like, that's just great. You, like, listen, their music sounds like they would be so cute, you know?
Yeah, sure.
But they're, like, I don't know. I'm just like...
You're not picking up.
No, I'm
what
not
they're
picking it
putting
up.
in.
I'd like to...
You wouldn't be a groupie.
I'll get back to y'all. I'll ask Gigi next time I talk to her, like, did she think the Beach Boys were cute? Because, like, they just weren't at all.
Well, I guess
But
you
they
would have the
sound
more
cute.
expert opinion there on that matter. So.
On the cuteness of
Yeah.
of famous men.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although a lot of like the early things we were watching, like they were not men, they were children.
They were.
But they look old.
Yeah, I would say that they look
They
a
were
little
showing videos
older.
of them at 16. They look like they could have been 30.
Yeah. Like when they had first started, like Brian Wilson was like 19, 20, 21-ish. Like he was the oldest. And the neighbor guy was like 13 or 14.
That's crazy as a child.
Which is crazy. But they all look like similar age. Like,
Yeah, and they look like 30 years old.
I don't know how they did that.
Right now they're like talking about how all the kids like look really old. And maybe it's pendulum. Maybe the kids looked old in the 60s too.
You think kids today look really old?
That's what they say. Well,
I
mean,
don't think so.
Well, I mean, definitely like middle schoolers, not necessarily boys, but like girls. I saw this video of these girls talking about graduating 100%. I was like, high school, I don't know, might be college. 8th grade.
They're going through that
grade.
middle school promotion.
I was like, what?
That middle school promotion
These girls
ceremony.
look 22.
Well, I wonder if that was like almost like a part to their marketing, maybe to appear a little bit more.
Probably. I mean, if you're like, especially like the themes that they're talking about, like a 13-year-old has never experienced those themes before.
Probably not. No, I wouldn't say.
No.
But alas, fake it till you make it, I
That's
guess.
6th grade love.
I guess. But, and I think it also helped that, they were wearing like matching stuff and a lot of,
Yeah.
so that helps kind of consolidate the image a bit. But yeah, I wonder if that was a part of like the marketing plan to make them seem a little bit more mature or older than they actually are. But of course they were managed by the dad for a while, the Wilson father.
Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Wilson, which worked out in the beginning, but not so much towards the end.
Yeah.
He was kind of a creative stickler because he had written a couple of songs on his own, and so he thought that his opinion was worth more than his kids and the other Beach Boys because, he had more experience, whatever, yada, yada. So, it didn't work out towards the later, and the recording of Pet Sounds, but on, late 60s.
And they talked about, tell me if I'm wrong, if I didn't, because I was in fact working while we watched it. Weren't they talking at the end, like the dad like sold their catalog without them knowing?
Sure did. The dad did sell the catalog without, discussing it or bringing it up.
Crazy.
It is.
So do you think he's rotting in hell or
perhaps,
what?
Perhaps, yes. Because the Mike Love, Brian Wilson had a big part in the writing and the creative force or whatever, but Mike Love also did as well. And so he was talking about how when the catalog was sold, it just felt like a total middle finger to him because it was like he wasn't given a lot of writing credits on some of that stuff. And he felt like he deserved some writing credits, but B, felt like, he should have had a say in the matter as well. So that's just tough. And I get more and more artists are doing that these days, but that seems like so odd to just up and sell it. Like, I can't remember when the doc said it, it was sold, but I think it was like, sometime in the 70s. Like, artists do it today because, like, they can get paid bukus of money and, like, sure, that's fine. And they can use it as, like, passive income, too. Like, you can set it up in a way where it's, like, it'll just continually pay you. But I think the Wilson dad, like, just sold it for one little lump sum and then was like, okay, bye. Like, that's awful.
That's crazy.
Because you spend, all of your youth setting up this thing for yourself. And for, in the Wilsons' case, their brothers and their cousin and their nice neighbor friend.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it just,
like,
all
if
that
the
hard
dad
work
didn't
goes away.
sell that, I mean, like, I assume that they, still made money off of it.
Oh,
some
sure.
way.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, that could be, like, many, many generations of, like, no one has to do anything because they were all related. It's like, if the dad didn't do that, like, he would be the patriarch of their entire family. But
The mogul.
No, definitely.
I can't remember the reasoning behind that one, but it was definitely
It's interesting.
crappy.
Sure.
I just remember thinking.
So he probably is rotting in hell.
Perhaps. Alas, Pet Sounds. It came out on May 16th in 1966. It was not certified gold until the year 2000. That is one of the, when you watch documentaries, you get the like, where are they now kind of thing. That was like one of the stats that flashed across the screen. It was like, oh, Pet Sounds wasn't certified gold until 2000, and then like platinum a couple weeks after that in 2000. Because the critics did not dig it at first.
I didn't really know that until we watched the documentary that like it was not successful at all, because like when you like, and even Apple Music agreed, right?
Yeah, the Apple Music put it on their crappy countdown.
List.
They put it at 20.
I mean, like,
greatest albums of all time.
When you think of the greatest albums of all time, Pet Sounds is obviously one of them. I had no idea that it was not. I mean, obviously there's like things that are like artistic that aren't like popular, but like could be like critically acclaimed. Yeah. Like nobody liked it then. That's crazy.
I think. Well, I know that. I mean, it had to do with the fact that it was like such a departure from like the Surf's Up, California Girls.
It definitely
Surfing
is,
USA.
but I do feel like they have, even to this day, like, and especially then, a lot less pool to be pulling from, but like such a unique sound. It still sounds like that.
Oh yeah, it still has like all the core elements and the foundations. But what I'm most interested in is like, this year 66 represents a turn for not only the Beach Boys, but it also represents a turn for the Beatles too, because this year Revolver comes out. But that wasn't, trashed or put to the side, and
I guess it's very opposite turns.
I guess so.
Like, this is more, like, artistic and, like, just deeper meaning. Like, that's, like, we're going to be rock stars now.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Because they, not only just such a departure, but I guess people had already built up this, like, image of who they are in their minds. And, like, it was just, like, so ingrained that, like, it couldn't possibly be anything else besides this.
But one thing I forgot to say earlier, speaking of the Beatles, maybe this was dumb, but I didn't know the Beach Boys were around before the Beatles were. I thought they were almost simultaneous.
I mean, they were pretty much. We're talking about a difference of like a couple years.
I know, but like you think about the span of their careers, a couple of years is a great distance.
That's fair. That is fair.
Like, I thought that it was like the same time.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And they were like talking in the documentary about like the Beatles showing up to America and stuff, and like them being like, "Oh, this is like our thing." Yeah. And I'm like, I thought that they all knew. They were like, yeah, they got the Beatles over here. We got the Beach Boys. We got it going on.
As a side, that's gotta suck for them. Like 64 Beatles coming to America, and then it's like all of a sudden like they're not the it's like Eagles' new kid in town kind of thing. It's like, dang, like, oh, the new kid at school, like, damn, we were so popular for so long.
The British invasion. And
then they just kind of took over overnight. So that, I gotta imagine that probably really sucked for them. Yeah. But
I feel like they were still at least I'm sure as basically children in the 60s, like they were like more aggressive about it. But like in their older age in the documentary, they were very gracious. They were like, it hurt, but like, they were really good and everything. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of like mutual respect, it seemed.
Yeah, they even didn't they talk about like didn't Paul say something about Pet Sounds?
Yes, so one of the members, forget who / one of their crew, had gone over to the UK to like promote Pet Sounds, and they were handing out copies and whatnot, and they had come to a point in which there was an opportunity to like show Paul and John Pet Sounds, and they played it for them, and then they listened to it like 3 or 4 times. Upon the first time of them hearing it, because they liked it so much.
Cute.
So while it didn't do well critically, like Brian Wilson had the like utmost respect of like his idols.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, it's a give and a take. It's like, yeah, people didn't generally like it when it came out, but at the same time, like, your biggest idols thought it was cool.
The album is very Paul.
Yes, it is.
I think that's probably like a bigger difference is like I don't think they really had like a John.
No. Like
Brian Wilson was like sad and depressed and everything, but like the stuff he was writing, like it's not like happy go lucky, but it's like John is like sad and depressing.
inaccessible
and we've talked,
way.
yeah, no, and we've talked on the podcast again a lot about like that's what makes the Beatles good is like the juxtaposition between Paul and John.
Yeah.
But like the Beach Boys are very Paul.
Yes, for sure. And spoiler alert, but Paul called this like the greatest song ever written. God only knows. So like, and then I think Brian Wilson's response was like, well, damn, well, how am I supposed to do anything better than that kind of thing? But I mean, that's got to feel good.
Absolutely. Paul's never said that to me.
No.
He'll
Nor anybody
once
else.
Paul listens to our podcast, I'm sure he'll be like,
Well, you know,
Oh,
I think
that's
it's very great, you know.
that's the best
You
podcast
got-
I've ever heard.
Yeah, y'all have got some really good insight, you know. It sounds
Paul
really
saying
great.
the word y'all.
That would have to be AI.
Y'all, actually, not just y'all, y'all've.
That,
The double contraction.
that'd have to be like AI generated because I can't imagine that occurring. But alas, yes, it does represent a departure from their typical Surf's Up kind of thing and the I Get Around, whatever. But it was pretty much all Brian Wilson, all written, produced, because at this time he was like trying to flex the producer genes that he had recently and skills that he had recently kind of
I think rightfully
awoken.
so.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
did a pretty good job.
He did a damn good job. Yeah. He even viewed it as a solo album, which the other members didn't like because they were like, yo, you can't make these sounds without us being there kind of thing. You know, it's like, yeah,
That's
you can
true.
write and you can use it because he used the Wrecking Crew for this album. Famously.
He's kind of a puppeteer.
Yes. But and so that the other members didn't like feeling like that. They were like, "Bro, we're doing your dirty quote unquote dirty work by going out on the road because you don't want to, and then you come back and say that this is like all you." But it's like you couldn't do this without us because we are your vehicles.
No, yeah.
And they, you know, they're obviously suggesting little edits here and there, and they're providing their own spin on it. And it's like you wouldn't have the thing that you have without them. So
Very true.
I see it. I see the creative genius side of like wanting to like taking around with it, but then I also it's like you also got to give credit where it's due.
Yeah. Be gracious.
Exactly. But this is like Brian Wilson's drug album because he was experimenting at the time. But he was 23.
In that documentary, he looks 45.
He was 23. Can you imagine
He's
last
my-
year putting out something?
Well, I'm 23 now.
I guess so.
I'm almost 24,
Yeah,
but
I guess so.
but that's crazy. He
Can you
looks
imagine?
45.
But right now, can you imagine putting something together as epic and prophetic and, you know, orchestral as...
No, I've just got this podcast.
Get with it! There's
I'm-
still time.
I'm doing my best with the podcast, and I
You've got till August, so there's still time.
damn it, I gotta make pet sounds by August.
You could do it. We know some people, but
Oh gosh, okay.
yeah, he used the Wrecking Crew like while the touring group was out on the road to like put together some arrangements and whatnot, and then when the touring group would come back, he would obviously use their voices, but then just other instruments that they would play, you know, guitar, keyboard, stuff like that. And the Wrecking Crew was a group of famous session musicians who would chill out in LA around this time, and they were hired guns, very very notable musicians, and so been on a lot of stuff, including Pet Sounds up their resume. This one's pretty famous on there. Brian wanted to create the best rock album of all time. He had heard Rubber Soul by the Beatles, and he was like, man, I've got to top that. I have got to make the best of the best. I got to put my whole self into it. And so that's what he had kind of set out to do.
Looking back at this just does not feel that rock to me.
No.
It still feels like pop music.
It sure does.
Like
And-
60s pop music, but
Yeah.
just with a lot more meaning
Yes.
than the rest of it.
Correct.
Like it's like a very meaningful pop album.
Correct. It's considered to be an early concept album. Of course, we talked about on the show, Frank Sinatra's In the Wee Small Hours of the Morning was credited as the first concept album. But, you know, being as around that time, like that was starting to become a thing. Instead of focusing more on the singles, you're more focusing on the collection of songs. And so Pet Sounds in particular takes a lot of inspiration from Rubber Soul in that way, because it was also Rubber Soul was like kind of early concept, kind of not. But then, you know, as it as the Beatles' career kind of evolved, it became more of a conceptual thing. People often have exposed Pet Sounds to be kind of like the gradual unraveling of a relationship as you go through the two sides. And there's like a lot of coming of age themes and dealing with isolation and stuff along those lines. So that's why it can kind of be attributed to be a concept album. The production of it exceeded $500,000 in today's money. Back then they spent $70,000 on it. Which was over $500,000 in today's money.
Wow.
And initially couldn't be reproduced live. It was one of those things. It's like, we're just going to put our whole selves into this and try to make this complex, beautiful thing that, you know, if it can't be reproduced on a stage, that's okay, because it's awesome as is.
It's awesome. It's brutal.
Awesome as is. Because they used a lot of instrumentation. They used a lot of weird arrangements and stuff along those lines. And we had talked about a couple weeks ago about Revolver. Same thing. Like, was never meant to be played live. It was just more so like, what can we do in the studio? It's the cover photo, the famous iconic cover photo, is from the San Diego Zoo. The other band,
I've always had a distaste in my mouth for the San Diego Zoo.
Is it because of Drake and Josh?
No, it's because they would always beat out the Memphis Zoo for the best zoo.
Oh.
We'd always be number 2 and San Diego would be number 1. Occasionally, I remember a couple of years growing up, we got picked by USA Today as number 1. Like right after Northwest Passage. Or
Teton
like right
Trek.
after Teton Trek. Yeah. But then
The
it's
new
like,
hippo and Clutch.
But then it's like the hype would die down and then San Diego would take back over.
Yeah, faux show.
I'm sure it's a nice zoo though.
Yeah, I'm sure it's great. just hating as per usual.
I'm just a hater.
But the other band members thought it was like silly title, silly picture, weren't really about it because again it was just like such a departure. But there are a couple of different stories as the name Pet Sounds emerged and what have you. But you know, they obviously went with it, and I think in good conscience it's held up well. It's, you know, it's been one of those things where it stands apart from everything else, and it's memorable in that way. So there's that. And just the album itself, like we had talked about it, but it's interesting to see how it's resurged over the years. I guess in the late 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, like a bunch of British columnists and music appreciators were putting it like on their top 10 albums of all time lists. And that's when I think it started to gain its second wave, because when the album came out, it was far more popular in the UK than it was in the States. But it's just interesting to see that, because you really don't see that often. I guess the only other thing that comes to mind recently is Kate Bush's thing with the whole Stranger Things. And yeah, but you just don't see that very often. So it's quite cool that has turned around. But because Brian Williams, because he put so much into it and wanted so much from it, and that it didn't hit commercially, like it put him into a massive like depressive state, because he was like, man, this was supposed to be lying a bit. Yeah, just like Brian was. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. The song itself, it has one of the most recognizable intros of all time, in my opinion. Like, I think like you hear that, I think it's a harpsichord or whatever that organ is, and the French horn, and you like immediately know what it is. Mm-hmm. It's similar to, if I had to pick a Beatles equivalent, Lucy in the Sky. Immediately you know what it is. And so nice that it has that notoriety. You know, it's just like, yes, it's God Only Knows by the Beach Boys. And it's a song about a situation that the narrator proposes that literally only God knows what the world would be like if he didn't have his lover. He can't possibly fathom, you know, what the world would look like without them. So that's the tagline, God Only Knows. So it's very melancholy in that way, because on one hand it's very sweet. It's like, truly God only knows what I would do or where I'd be without you. But at the same time, it's like, are you saying that because you feel something slipping away? Perhaps, you know. Mm-hmm. So there's been a lot read into the meaning and what have you, and his marriage at the time to that one lady that was in that group of that trio.
Yeah.
So, but he sat down, wrote it after hearing Rubber Soul. His writing partner for Pet Sounds was a fella named Tony Asher. And they said this one, writing it was effortless. It just was very easy to write, which is, it's crazy to think about, like, some of the things that folks spend, you know, a lot of time writing, and then it ends up being a magnum opus, or they spend a lot of time writing and it's still a deep cut, or something they just dream up of instantly and it becomes something really, really popular. You know, it's interesting to see that juxtaposition, because you just never know what's gonna work, what's not, until you do it. So, like, I'm sure Peel Me a Nanner
Toss Me a
was
Peanut.
worked on for many, many years and perfected into the masterpiece that it is. But
Peel me a nanner, toss me a peanut, I'll come swinging from a coconut tree.
you know, some things just need to age like a fine wine or cheese.
Yeah.
So
Such as Peel Me a Nanner.
Peel Me a Nanner, toss me a peanut. It has obviously a lot of religious overtones, which was super taboo at the time. Like, unless you were singing "God Bless America," like, you probably shouldn't throw the big man in a song, because there were a lot of songs that were either censored or cut from radio play because they had mentioned the big man or talked about a lot of religious themes at the time, and so it was kind of a risk. And Brian deliberated back and forth on, you know, wanting to release it, and he eventually decided yes, because it would stir up some buzz and get some attention. And they say God a lot of times in this one, so it's like, oh, you would, you know, if you're gonna do it, you go do it.
Well, it's like, I would think it would be the opposite. Like, I would think it would be like only if it's like negative.
Yeah.
Like back then?
I think that also had a part to do with his, you know, motivation to release it as well, because it wasn't like coming from a negative POV, but at the same time, like, it's one of those things where it's like instantly heard like the word God and it's like, oh, nope, gotta cut it. Like,
that seems like more of a today type thing than a
perhaps,
type thing.
Perhaps, but obviously with the religious overtones, he thought he'd be risking it, and so he was, to some extent. Got a lot, and I will say, back to the religious overtones thing, like, they also had like prayer sessions before recording this album because they just really wanted it to do well. So it was almost like there was a church element to it as well. Alas, the song itself has got some very interesting musical things happening. I am no expert or have really any knowledge of music theory at all, so I'm not even going to get into like the different structures and thirds and fifths and mixolydians, and I'm sure Rick Beato has done it at some point, so you can go, if you're interested in that, I'm sure there's a video on it. But from the layman's point of view, it's got some great instruments. We don't hear French horn enough, personally. I think it is like such a beautiful melody maker, and something that just doesn't get used as much as it should.
Unfortunate.
Personally.
Break out that French horn,
and
brother.
So it's a big piece to this song, as you know. And there are jingle bells in this one.
Come on, Jingle Bells.
So, not a Christmas song, though. It's not the Little Saint Nick.
Little Saint Nick, little Saint Nick.
And then you hear like the claps and the taps. It's them banging on orange juice plastic cups. So another interesting musical thing going on. And then there's a little flute run in there too. That's pretty nice. There's just a lot of nuances to this one. Again, another one you should probably listen with headphones if you've never done it before, just so you can pick out some of those little pieces. But as far as it goes musically, there's a lot of interesting things chord-wise happening, very unconventional chord structure there, without fully understanding the complete theory behind it. It is an odd thing. The bridge break is really nice. The little doom 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 doom. Like, it's one of those things where it just feels so compositional. Like, it is more approached from a a piece of music rather than, oh, like we're sitting down to write this song, we're sitting down to like figure this thing out. Like it is more of a orchestration of a lot of different things, and something you don't see a lot today, really ever, and something that is really kind of cool and noticeable about this song. And then really appreciate the call and answer at the end or towards the end of the track where they're repeating "God Only Knows," and it's Carl sings it, and he's got the main line, but then he's got the backup. It's like almost kind of sung in around, which is really nice, and it's just got great counter melodies throughout it as well. And it's crazy to think that it's like a 3-minute song, 2:53. It's like they jam packed all that into 2:53, which is pretty crazy. And again, something
talk about maximizers.
Correct, and something just don't see a lot. So, more than 20 musicians are featured on this track, and they did it in 22 takes. I think they took the 20th one, but it's often praised by many as one of the greatest songs ever written. And like I said, Paul McCartney did say it was the greatest song ever written. It's number 11 in Rolling Stone's top 500 greatest songs of all time. And it is something that will remain a classic for many, 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 many years and moons to come.
Absolutely.
God only knows that.
All right.
So that's that. That's God Only Knows. If you know it, you love it. And if you don't know it, you should. So give it a spin. But we're going to move on to the segment portion of today's show.
Wait, can I ask you a question first?
Sure.
Is it your favorite Beach Boys song?
I don't know. I would easily put it top 5, obviously, but
just because it's the best, it doesn't have to be your favorite.
No, I don't know if it's my favorite. I mean, wouldn't it be nice? Makes me think of Seinfeld. So there's that one episode. Wouldn't it be nice is
probably my favorite, and I don't like Seinfeld.
I know you don't, but it is featured in an episode, a very memorable episode. So I might say wouldn't it be nice, but I think this is objectively their best because it is such a composition. So
I agree wholeheartedly to both things.
Or good vibrations make you feel like you're sitting at the pool.
Yeah, no, that's also a banger.
So, but they've got countless other good ones.
I do love Kokomo.
I mean, it's a fun song. It is a objectively
My dad
fun
hates
song.
Kokomo.
Shocker.
He does not like Kokomo.
Shocker.
I love Kokomo.
Shocker. Anyway, time for the segment portion of today's show. The first segment being Emma's Everyday Jam, the song you've been bumping this week. What is it?
I'm going to do a throwback pick.
Okay.
Because I recently put this song on a few playlists for like our getting ready for the wedding stuff, because I was just picking songs I really like, and I've just been listening to those same playlists over and over again. And it really same sentiment as when we began the podcast, and I talked about it every episode. If you listen to Mad Season by Matchbox 20 every day, it really does make your day a lot better. So, and you might feel stupid, but it's okay. It's okay because Rob does too. So I'm gonna pick Mad Season for probably the upwards of 10th time on the pod.
I'm bleeding and broken, though I've never spoken, I come undone. In this mad season.
I guess that's the thing, though. Your everyday jam, because you don't.
Yeah, no.
You're not bumping anything new.
It is the point of my segment.
Yes.
So thank you.
Now it's time for our major and minor chords, the segment in which we talk about our respective highs and lows of the week. Emma, what say you?
My new minor might be that you just called me Emma. That was weird.
Emma.
That was weird. You never called me by my normal name.
It is true. It felt weird coming out.
It was strange. Really hit me. Apologize, actually. You should apologize to me.
I'm sorry. On behalf of the Mike's Monday Jam Network. I'm sorry.
All right. My minor, not too much bad going on. We're doing pretty good. I guess my only minor, and this isn't like a big minor, but like we've got a lot of things going on. They're all very exciting, but I feel like it's gonna be difficult to like be in a routine throughout the summer.
Yes.
The routine, it's non-existent. I'm really trying though. But going into my major, I've been really trying to be good on my Pilates game. I've done it every day except for the day we went to the day we were in Disney World, and the day afterwards we were both dead. We were lying in bed, just like Brian Wilson did. And so I've been kind of getting back into that. Of course, that we went to Disney World. That was awesome and brutal and so fun.
Good time.
Mini moon. And now everyone in my Instagram comments also wants to go on a mini moon with me.
Hey, can you take me on a mini moon?
Mini moon.
Please.
Lauren was very proud that she started that because she is going on a mini moon with me.
She's a trendsetter.
But we have, the other part to my major is that we have another mini moon coming up this weekend. We're going to. You
could call it that. Sure.
Mini moon with Bryant Long. We are going
as we go to somebody else's wedding.
In Jackson, Wyoming. But it's gonna be cool that we're gonna be able to say we've gone to Wyoming.
Agreed, and it'll be a fun time.
And I'm sure it'll be beautiful. It will be beautiful.
It's a celebration of two people. It'll be fun.
Yeah, you know,
it'll be a great time.
Yeah, grad Tim at Chicken Crib.
At Chicken Crib.
So yeah, I'm done. You look like you were waiting.
I'd like to lock in my answer, Steve.
You had something else for me to say.
Minor. We've got issues with the sink. Little cap keeps falling off the track.
I'm gonna be a plumber today. I'm about to go to Home Depot right when we're done, and I'm gonna get some plumbing supplies.
Because we've got the sink Brita, and for some reason now its weight just keeps having it like slip out of place, and it's not the Brita's fault. It's it's a sink. Yeah. It's
definitely a super old sink.
Yeah.
And I think that the tread was already pretty screwed up on it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do some plumbing with some plumber's tape and get it working.
Because I was farting around with it.
It's a very normal plumbing issue.
Oh yeah. But I was farting around with it for like, I don't know.
Before you got into it, because I'd see it during the day and I'd fix it, and it would stay fixed for a while. I probably fixed it 15 times.
Ah, damn. So, collective minor there, I guess.
Yeah.
Because the freaking sink, but we'll get it. Because it's annoying. You turn it on and it like splashes everywhere.
Yeah, it gets everywhere. Get in your face, on your shirt, up your butt.
It's not a bidet.
It could be.
Makeshift bidet.
Turn it into a major.
Yeah, there we go. My majors, we have a free bidet. No, I echo the major, not to sound like a unoriginal robot, but we've had a lot to be thankful for and a lot to celebrate and a lot to have fun with.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it at that. Last but not least, our honorable mentions for the week on the songs that almost made the cut or follow a similar vein. First being Barbara Ann by the Beach Boys. Banger. Always makes me think about the Minions.
I was about to say, is this the Beach Boys version or the Minions version?
Ba 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 na na. Ba 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 na 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 na. Ba 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 na na.
That is the Beach Boys, but you should go listen to the Minions one too. It's fun. A little honorable mention to the honorable mention.
Yeah.
Which of course is called Ba Ba Ba
Ba Na Na.
Ba Na. Yes. Number 2 is one we've kept referencing without explaining throughout this episode, and that's Brian Wilson by the Bare Naked Ladies. And this song made you think he was dead?
Yeah, well, it says lying in bed just like Brian Wilson did, but it sounds like they say dead, and I thought he was dead for a long time because that's what I thought the Bare Naked Ladies were saying. But he
like
is
Brian Wilson
still
did.
living.
He is. He's the only Wilson brother still on the earth.
Still living.
Yes. So
But he
Bare-naked
did.
ladies.
He did lie in bed.
Yes.
I'm lying in bed, just like Brian Wilson did. Well, I'm lying in bed, just like Brian Wilson did. Ooh, yeah.
Last but not least, we missed a birthday last episode for
Our bad.
Our bad.
Our bad.
You know that's gonna happen.
That's
but,
our
you know,
bad.
we always gonna make it up. And so for Miss Barbara Fuller, happy belated to you, Gigi.
You called me Emma. Now you're calling Gigi Barbara Fuller. You're being weird today on the pod.
Happy belated. It was
Happy birthday, Gigi. Sorry we
Happy
didn't.
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday! Happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Sorry we didn't say it last week.
So for you,
This is
for
more.
Gigi,
This is more of a you-centric episode, anyways. You know.
That's true. For Miss Gigi's birthday, go listen to The Streets of Laredo by the Smothers Brothers.
We see by our outfits that we are both cowboys. If you get an outfit, you can be a cowboy too.
It's a good one, and one that is referenced a bunch. But that's going to do it for us this week, folks. Hope you know, if you need to lie in bed like Brian Wilson did, then, you know, go for it.
Yeah.
Take a nap. Why
Yeah.
not?
Take a
Listen.
nap, and also give me any pointers, any ideas you have for me to create my pet sounds before August 18th, because apparently that's all the time I have to create my lifetime magnum opus.
Correct. So the clock is ticking.
The clock is ticking.
All right. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.